Hey, everybody. Fascinating discussion today on what's next in the Wi Fi industry with Marcel from NetExperience. Marcel, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Stephen. Glad to share our view on what's happening in Wi-Fi for the industry today.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining. And you're in sunny Ottawa. I used to love my trips up to Ottawa to see Nortel back in the day. And you
Oh,
work
yes.
for many great companies over the decades, including Nortel. So, really excited to have your unique perspective here. Before
Mhm.
all that, maybe start with introductions. Talk about NetExperience, a little bit about your background and bio.
Sure, even. So I'm a CTO and co-founder of NetExperience. Yeah, my background, as you can see from my gray hair, several decades of building telecom products as a technology executive in startups, larger company, mainly in the wireless space, but also spent a fair bit of time in transport and in the core networks. Yeah, so we started NetExperience back in December 2019, Canadian company. This was for myself and my co-founder. This was our fourth or fifth Wi-Fi company. So
Mm.
for this go around, we wanted to do it totally differently, and this is why we contacted the Telecom Infra Project and looked at a totally different way to start a Wi-Fi company.
Well, there's a lot there. For those who aren't familiar, maybe talk about who is the Telecom Infrastructure Project and the
Sure.
amazing
Sure.
backers behind it.
Telecom Infra Project industry group formed in 2016, about like 8 years ago, with the goal of basically rebuilding the telecom infrastructure using disaggregated networks. So what I mean by disaggregated is totally separate the hardware platform from the software solution. So the clear advantage is uh, quite a diverse supply chain of hardware makers that are compatible with a community-driven set of open source software for basically every element of the telecom network, from access, transport, and core. So about 200 members. The members are mainly the global service providers, like tier one service providers, but also quite a list of technology companies such as NetExperience, which are contributing hardware and software to that ecosystem.
Fantastic. And, the Wi Fi industry now is kind of like us, decades old.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of best practices out there already with
Yeah.
doing things. So how do you think about a new approach, a fresh approach to network management in
Yeah,
this market? What needs to be different? Yeah.
sure. Sometimes people see the Step Open Wi-Fi project as a brand new thing, but it's clearly an evolution of
Mm.
developing an ecosystem for Wi-Fi. It started, several years ago with the formation of the OpenWRT project, which was an attempt to open source access point software. So what we did in collaboration with the Telecom Infra Project was to take this to another step and make it enterprise ready.
Mm.
Basically add the feature set to the software stack that would allow us to go in an enterprise deployment. Hospitality, MDU, education, i.e., not residential where OpenWRT started. So what's very new about it is this disaggregation aspect. We're basically building a community-based virtual vendor network.
Wow.
Companies like NetExperience provide software solution in the cloud for network optimization. We partner with several hardware vendors, the same hardware vendors that would supply to the existing tier one Wi-Fi vendors. And the community-driven software development is quite unique. I am contributing features to the OpenStack. My competitors are contributing features, but together we end up with a protocol stack, which is very comparable to the existing tier one suppliers. So the advantage for a service provider is having a choice in supply chain, much lower cost, because they basically deal with the manufacturer of the hardware. No markup from a vendor. So they can directly procure hardware from several ODMs. And all these hardware SKUs or models are fully compatible with the open source software stack. So quite a different way to deploy and approach deploying enterprise Wi-Fi in the industry.
Yeah, indeed. It sounds amazing as an industry insider, a really novel approach. But what about, from the customer side, who may not be involved with the standards and all the amazing work you're doing? I mean, what problems do you see them having today that need solving? What are their key challenges beyond the usual Wi-Fi traditional historic ones?
Yeah. A lot of the pull we see from these initiatives are service providers and customers that require enterprise-grade features. Features you would find with Cisco, Meraki, Aruba, for example, at residential Wi-Fi cost. Wow. And the typical verticals that we see a lot of traction from are MDUs. MDUs are like a large enterprise with several users sharing the same network, needing sophisticated features such as advanced radio resource management, but they can't afford, to pay enterprise level pricing for an access point or a switch. And that's the problem we're solving. Building a very cost-effective supply chain for the service provider, and at the same time providing our customer with enterprise-grade feature sets.
Fantastic. And, talk about how you integrate with existing infrastructures and networks and protocols.
Sure.
There's a lot of technical debt out there, a lot of legacy and complexity in the carriers. How do you deploy over top of all that?
That's an excellent question. And this is why this TIP Open Wi-Fi subgroup was formed in the Telecom Infra project. This group is formed by the service providers, like the Comcast of the world and the AT&Ts of the world, which know everything about what it takes from a feature set point of view to deploy enterprise network. Plus the technology providers such as ourselves that have spent decades deploying these networks. So the magic here is this community-led product development. I know the feature set it takes to deploy to a public Wi-Fi network with a tier one carrier. I know exactly the feature set we need to deploy to in the hospitality vertical, for example. And together, these features are built towards this vertical. So when a service provider deploys the open Wi-Fi, it's very similar to actually deploying, an existing tier one vendor. The feature sets are similar. The plug and play aspects, the security aspects, the PKI aspects are top notch. The most modern approach to security. And the combination of all that makes it extremely easy to deploy in these verticals.
Fantastic. And as you know, a lot of these standards, not just for Wi-Fi, but other related standards have been around since the 80s and Ethernet the 70s. So
Sure.
We've come a long way, but I think there are a lot of capabilities maybe that haven't been incorporated over the top of the standard. I'm thinking machine learning and AI even today. What's your approach there to integrating some of these emerging technologies into your stack or into the standard?
Sure. This is where vendors like NetExperience can differentiate. Because the way we build our products is we start with an open source stack, which we use, but also contribute immensely. A large portion of my engineering team is focusing on contributing to the open stack. Where we differentiate is typically in our cloud software, which is responsible to optimize, manage these networks. Us at NetExperience, we wanted to take a fresh look on AI ML. So we actually went through an 18-month project with the Canadian Research Chair for AI ML use in 5G networks. So we worked with a team of postdocs and researchers specialized in 5G networking to see how we could apply the recent learning in 5G, 3GPP networks to Wi-Fi. So the net impact of that is a set of models approach for anomaly detection, for faster time to repair, and network optimization based on reinforcement learnings, and several like modern ML techniques. So where we are at NetExperience is we have completed, I would say, the research work, the applied research work, and we're in the process of industrializing this learning. But it was a very good approach. There was a lot of learning to take from what the 3GPP industry has done, and a lot of it can be applied to Wi-Fi as well.
Interesting. You mentioned 5G, and we're seeing a lot of move towards private 5G as well as fixed mobile. Are these complementary technologies, or do you see
totally.
a lot of overlap?
Yeah, totally. I used to work with renowned 3GPP company such as Ericsson, where when I was an Ericsson employee, we were basically building the world infrastructure for private and public 3GPP network. And since through these like decades at looking at 3GPP, 5G, and Wi-Fi, it's totally obvious right now that they're totally complementary. You cannot only deploy private LTE or 5G in an enterprise, and more it makes sense to deploy Wi-Fi in combination of 3GPP. But I would say in our target verticals, it's I would say fully dominated by very high performance Wi-Fi deployment, Wi-Fi 6, Wi-Fi 7, which gives you enterprise performance. Quite substantial enterprise performance.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's a fantastic leap forward. And how do you get started? Are you shipping product today? Can customers what does a deployment look like? How do they get started?
We have a few tens of thousands of APs deployed globally. We're deployed in North America, in Europe, in Asia, in Africa. There's incredible adoption of the whole disaggregation concept, thanks to the early movers such as Open RAN, for example, that have been around TIP a few years before Open Wi-Fi existed. So there's already it's a new era for telecom. A few decades ago, this open source approach, disaggregated approach, might not have been well adopted by the industry, but we're way beyond this phase right now. I haven't met a single customer that had any issues with this approach. The process is a typical process, and the customers engage with us. We go through proof of concepts, trial networks, and then we commercially deploy. Very fast adoption, and extremely well received by the service providers.
Fantastic. And what's next? Not just with your efforts, but what do you see happening with the TIP group within the next year or two? Just more work to do, or what are some of the trends you're looking at?
One very interesting project that we just started a few months ago or almost a year ago now, is the addition of the LAN Ethernet switching layer in enterprise networks. Us and other collaborators in TIP created this open LAN switching initiative. And this is getting a lot of strong pull in the industry, where not only we will disaggregate Wi-Fi, but also the access LAN layer, like the PoE switches, the aggregation switches, for example. So I see quite a ramp in that type of deployment in the coming year. We're quite involved with the AFC initiatives by the Wi-Fi Alliance, by WBA, to massively deploy 6 gigahertz networks with Wi-Fi 7. So we'll see quite an adoption of Wi-Fi 7 worldwide in enterprise, private, and public networks. So both of these initiatives have a very strong wind behind them, and I would say that would summarize the next 12 to 18 months of the next layer of innovation.
Well, congratulations on all the success. We could talk for an hour reminiscing about the amazing history of the whole Canada, Ontario tech movement,
Sure.
but it's great to see the leading edge work you're doing after so many decades ago. You were at Nortel. So well done, and onwards and upwards. Thanks for joining, Marcel.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Take care.